The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting golden rays across the living room, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Emma stood at the window, her heart racing as she watched her Uncle Jackson move about the yard, tending to the garden. It was an ordinary day in their small town, but for Emma, the tension that had been building between them felt anything but ordinary. She could feel it, a magnetic pull that drew her thoughts to him, igniting a fire within her that she knew was wrong, yet exhilarating. "Emma!" Jackson's voice broke her reverie. "Can you come help me with this?" She turned, her pulse quickening as she crossed the threshold into the backyard. "Sure, Uncle Jackson," she called back, forcing a smile to mask the turmoil inside her. As she approached, she noticed the way the sun highlighted the contours of his strong arms and the subtle lines of his face. He was more than just her uncle, he was a man who stirred something deep within her. Over the next few weeks, the tension escalated. They shared laughter, secrets, and moments that lingered just a heartbeat too long. One evening, as they watched a movie together, their hands brushed against each other. Emma felt a jolt of electricity shoot up her arm, and she glanced at Jackson, her breath hitching in her throat. He met her gaze, and in that moment, something shifted. The air was thick with unspoken words, a shared understanding that they could no longer ignore. "Emma," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need to talk." Her heart raced as she nodded, unsure of what would come next. They moved to the porch, the dim light casting shadows around them. Jackson looked at her, his eyes dark and intense. "I can't pretend anymore. There's something between us, isn't there?" The question hung in the air like a charged storm cloud. Emma felt her cheeks flush as she nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "I feel it too, Uncle Jackson." His hand reached out, brushing against her cheek. "We shouldn't, but I can't help it." The words were a confession, a release that shattered the barrier between them. And in that moment, they crossed a line that would change everything. The days that followed were filled with stolen moments and whispered secrets. They met in hidden corners of the house, each encounter a thrilling dance on the edge of danger. Their kisses were soft yet fierce, igniting a fire that consumed them both. Emma felt alive in a way she had never experienced before, each touch sending shivers down her spine. One night, as they lay entwined in a cocoon of blankets, Jackson brushed his fingers through her hair. "I never thought I could feel this way," he admitted. "You're not just my niece, you're everything to me." Emma's heart swelled at his words. "I feel the same. But what if someone finds out?" Jackson's gaze darkened with determination. "We'll keep it a secret. No one has to know. This is ours." Their bond deepened, but so did the weight of their secret. Emma often found herself staring out the window, contemplating the world beyond their little bubble. Could they really sustain this? Or were they simply two souls caught in an impossible web of desire? They continued to navigate their covert relationship, but the thrill of secrecy began to wane, replaced by an undercurrent of fear. Emma felt the walls closing in on her as she watched her friends date and fall in love openly, while she and Jackson were forced to hide their feelings like a shameful secret. One evening, as they sat on the porch swing, Emma's heart was heavy with doubt. "What if we can't keep this up?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What if someone finds out?" Jackson turned to her, his expression serious. "We'll figure it out. We always do." But even as he spoke, she could see the worry etched in his features. Days turned into weeks, and the pressure mounted. Emma found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, fearing the moment they would be discovered. The thought of losing Jackson was unbearable, yet the thought of their relationship being exposed terrified her. "It was a hot summer night when I was in my room, trying to cool off from the heat, when I heard a knock at my door. 'Come in,' I called out, assuming it was my mother. The door creaked open, and I turned to see Uncle Jackson standing there, his eyes wide with surprise. I was wearing nothing but a thin tank top and a pair of cotton shorts, and I could feel my cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "Oh, I'm sorry," he stammered, quickly averting his gaze. "I didn't realize you were changing." I felt a flutter in my stomach at the way he said changing, as if he was imagining me in various states of undress. I knew I should cover up, but something stopped me. Instead, I stood up and walked towards him, my hips swaying slightly. "It's okay, Uncle Jackson," I said, my voice soft and inviting. "I don't mind if you look." He swallowed hard, his eyes darting back to mine. "Sarah, we shouldn't," he said, but there was no conviction in his voice. I took another step closer, until we were standing just inches apart. I could feel the heat radiating off his body, and I knew he wanted me as much as I wanted him. "Who's going to stop us?" I whispered, reaching out to trail my fingers along his chest. He let out a low groan, his hands coming up to grip my waist. "You're playing with fire, Sarah," he warned, but he didn't push me away. I smirked up at him, my heart racing with excitement. Maybe I like playing with fire. And then, without another word, he was kissing me. His lips were hot and demanding, his tongue slipping into my mouth to tangle with mine. I moaned into the kiss, my hands fisting in his shirt as I pulled him closer. He backed me up against the wall, his hands roaming over my body, touching me in ways I had only dreamed about. I arched into his touch, my nipples hardening beneath the thin fabric of my tank top. "Uncle Jackson," I gasped, as his lips trailed down my neck. "We shouldn't do this." But even as I said the words, I was unbuttoning his shirt, my fingers desperate to feel his skin against mine. He pulled back, his eyes dark with desire. "Tell me to stop, and I will," he said, his voice rough. But I couldn't tell him to stop. I needed him too much. I shook my head, my eyes never leaving his. "Don't stop," I whispered. And he didn't. He captured my mouth in another searing kiss, his hand slipping under my tank top to cup my breasts. I whimpered against his lips, my head falling back against the wall as he teased my nipples with his thumbs. He pulled my tank top off, tossing it aside, and then his mouth was on my breasts, his tongue swirling around my nipples until I was writhing with need. I fumbled with his belt, desperate to feel him inside me. He kicked off his pants and underwear, and then he was lifting me up, my legs wrapping around his waist as he thrust into me. I cried out, my nails digging into his shoulders as he filled me completely. He started to move, his hips thrusting against mine, his tools sliding in and out of my tight heat. I clung to him, my body arching into his as I lost myself in the pleasure. "Uncle Jackson," I moaned, my voice raw with need. "Harder. Faster." He obliged, his hips snapping against mine, his tool hitting that sweet spot inside me that made me see stars. I could feel my orgasm building, my muscles tightening around him as I teetered on the edge. "Come for me, Emma," he growled, his voice strained with his own impending release. "Let go." And I did. I came with a scream, my body convulsing around him as wave after wave of pleasure crashed over me. He followed soon after, his tool pulsing inside me as he found his own release. We stayed like that for a moment, our bodies still joined, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. And then, slowly, he lowered me to the ground, his eyes meeting mine. "What have we done?" I whispered, suddenly feeling the weight of what we had just done. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Emma. But I don't regret it." I bit my lip, unsure of what to say. We had crossed a line, and there was no going back. But as I looked into his eyes, I knew that I didn't want to go back. I wanted him, consequences be damned. Over the next 2 days, we snuck off to be together whenever we could. We made love in every room of the house, our bodies coming together in a dance of passion and desire. We couldn't keep our hands off each other, and every stolen moment only made us want more. "Jackson, what are we doing?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "This can't last forever." He took her hands in his grip firm yet tender. "We'll find a way. I promise." But even as he spoke the words, she could see the uncertainty in his eyes. The storm raged on outside, but inside, Emma felt a different kind of tempest brewing. They were playing with fire, and sooner or later, someone would get burned. The next day, Emma's worst fears came true. She had just returned from school when she found her mother sitting in the living room, her expression grave. "We need to talk," her mother said, her voice stern. "I saw you and Jackson together yesterday." Emma's heart sank, dread pooling in her stomach. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Her mother's gaze hardened. "I saw you two in the garden." "You weren't just talking, Emma. What's going on?" Panic surged within her as she glanced toward the hallway where Jackson was. "It's not what you think," she exclaimed, desperate to protect their secret. But her mother's eyes narrowed. "I don't want to hear excuses. This isn't just a crush, he's your uncle. You can't be together like this." Emma felt her world crumbling around her. "But I love him," she shouted, the words spilling out before she could stop them. Silence fell between them, thick and suffocating. Her mother's expression shifted from anger to disbelief. "You're too young to understand what you're saying. This is wrong, Emma." The confrontation shattered everything. Emma felt as though she were caught in a whirlwind, spinning out of control. She ran to her room, tears streaming down her face, and slammed the door behind her. She could hear her mother's footsteps retreating, but the pain of the moment lingered. Jackson appeared moments later, his face pale with concern. "Emma, what happened?" he asked, his voice filled with worry. "They know," she choked out, her heart racing. "My mom saw us. She knows everything." His expression hardened as he processed the news. "We can't let this end like this. We can't let them tear us apart." But Emma felt the weight of reality crashing down on her. "What are we going to do, Jackson? My mom is right, this is wrong. We can't just pretend it's okay." Jackson ran a hand through his hair, frustration etched on his face. "I can't lose you, Emma. You mean too much to me. We have to fight for this." Emma's heart twisted at his words, torn between her love for him and the realization of the chaos their relationship had unleashed. "But at what cost?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "What happens if they take you away from me?" Jackson stepped closer, his eyes filled with desperation. "We can find a way to make this work. We could leave, start fresh somewhere else. Just you and me." The idea sent a shiver of fear and excitement through her. "Leave? Just like that?" "Why not?" he said, his voice gaining strength. "We're adults. We can make our own choices." Emma's mind raced with possibilities, but the reality of their situation weighed heavily on her. "What about our families? What about everything we know? What if we fail?" "Then we'll figure it out together," he insisted, his gaze unwavering. "I'd rather face the unknown with you than live in a world where I can't be with you." His passion ignited something deep within her, a flicker of hope amidst the darkness. But she couldn't shake the fear that clung to her like a shadow. What if we get caught? What if it destroys everything? Jackson reached for her, cupping her face in his hands. "Emma, I love you. I'm willing to risk everything for you. I need to know if you feel the same way." The intensity of his gaze held her captive, and for a moment, the world around her faded. She could feel the weight of their decision pressing down on her, but the thought of a life without him felt unbearable. "I love you too, Jackson," she breathed, tears spilling down her cheeks. "But I'm terrified." "Then let's face that fear together," he said, his voice steady. "We'll make a plan. We'll be careful. No one has to know until we're ready." Emma hesitated, her heart racing at the thought of leaving everything behind. But the connection they shared was undeniable, a bond that had grown from something innocent into a fierce, all-consuming passion. "Okay," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's do it." Over the next few days, they plotted their escape, transforming their whispered conversations into a tangible plan. They spoke in hushed tones, their hearts racing with both fear and excitement as they discussed where they would go and how they would get there. Jackson suggested they head to a nearby city, one where they could start anew, free from the judgment and scrutiny of their families. They would find jobs, a small apartment, and live as any other couple would, except for the fact that their love was still considered forbidden. Emma felt a thrill at the thought of being with Jackson without the weight of secrecy pressing down on them. But doubts lingered in the back of her mind. What would they do when their families discovered their absence? Would they search for them? Would they ever forgive them? As the days passed, the pressure mounted, and the tension in the house became unbearable. Emma's mother was on high alert, her suspicions growing stronger by the day. Emma felt trapped, constantly looking over her shoulder, fearing that one wrong move would expose their plan. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Jackson took her hand in his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "We leave this Saturday," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We'll take the bus early in the morning, and by noon, we'll be on our way." Emma nodded, her heart pounding. What if my mom doesn't let me go?" she asked, her voice trembling. Jackson's expression turned serious. "Then we'll figure it out. I won't let anyone stand in the way of our happiness." The certainty in his words ignited a flicker of courage within her. "Okay. I trust you." Saturday arrived, and the weight of their decision hung heavy in the air. Emma packed a small bag with essentials, clothes, her favorite book, and a few cherished mementos that she couldn't bear to leave behind. Each item felt like a reminder of the life she was leaving, but the thought of being with Jackson kept her moving forward. Before she knew it, the sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the house. Emma's heart raced as she made her way to the living room, where Jackson awaited her. He looked handsome and determined, his expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Are you ready?" he asked, his eyes searching hers. Emma took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied, feeling a mix of exhilaration and fear. They slipped out of the house, the cool night air wrapping around them like a comforting embrace. Emma glanced back one last time, her heart aching at the thought of leaving her family behind. Emma nodded, her pulse quickening as she leaned into him. "I think so. Just nervous about what comes next." "Me too," he replied softly, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "But no matter what happens, we'll face it together." As they sat in silence, the weight of their decision lingered in the air. Emma's heart swelled with love for Jackson, but a flicker of doubt crept in. Would they truly be able to make this work? Would they find happiness in a world that frowned upon their bond? The bus ride was filled with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Emma stared out the window, watching the familiar landscape fade into the distance. With each passing mile, she felt a sense of freedom wash over her, but the nagging fear of being discovered still haunted her. As they arrived in the city, the bright lights and bustling streets enveloped them, a stark contrast to the quiet life they had left behind. They found a small, affordable apartment and settled in, the thrill of their new life overshadowing the fear of their families discovering their whereabouts. But as the days turned into weeks, the initial excitement began to wane. They struggled to find stable jobs, and the weight of their secret weighed heavily on their shoulders. Emma found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, her heart racing at every siren or unfamiliar face. The city felt both liberating and isolating, and the lack of familiarity began to gnaw at her. Jackson worked long hours at a local diner while Emma found a part-time job at a bookstore. In the beginning, it felt like an adventure, but as the reality of adulthood settled in, the thrill of their escape faded. They were living on the edge, pretending to be just another couple in love, but the fear of discovery loomed over them like a dark cloud. One evening, as they sat on the small balcony of their apartment, Emma stared at the city skyline, her heart heavy with doubt. "Jackson, what if they find us?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if they come looking for us?" He turned to her, his expression serious. "We knew this would be a risk, Emma. But we're together, and that's what matters." "But at what cost?" she pressed, a lump forming in her throat. "I miss my family. I miss my home. This isn't what I imagined it would be." Jackson sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know it's hard. But we can't go back. Not now. We made our choice." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. "I feel like we're living a lie." I love you, but this isn't the life I wanted. I thought we'd be happy, but I feel more lost than ever. Jackson took her hands in his, searching her gaze. What do you want, Emma? If you want to go back, I'll support you. Just say the word. The offer hung between them, heavy with implications. Emma's heart raced at the thought of returning home, but the idea of losing Jackson was unbearable. I don't know, she admitted, her voice trembling. I just want to feel safe again. As the weeks passed, the burden of their secret weighed heavily on them. One evening, as they were preparing dinner, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Emma's heart stopped, dread washing over her. Who could that be? She whispered, her hands shaking. Jackson exchanged a worried glance with her before opening the door. To their shock, standing on the threshold was Emma's mother, a look of concern etched on her face. Emma, her mother exclaimed, relief flooding her voice. There you are. I've been looking everywhere for you. Emma's stomach dropped as she took a step back, her mind racing. Mom, what are you doing here? She stammered, panic rising within her. I had to find you. You disappeared without a word. We were worried sick. Her mother's eyes darted to Jackson, and Emma could see the judgment in her gaze. Jackson stepped forward, his expression defensive. We're fine, Mrs. Roberts. Emma is safe here with me. Her mother's face hardened. Safe? Is that what you call this? Running away from your family? From your responsibilities? Mom, please, Emma pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. This is my life now. I love Jackson, and we're together. Her mother's expression softened momentarily, but her voice remained firm. You're too young to understand what you're doing. This isn't love, it's infatuation. You can't just throw your life away like this. Emma felt her heart shatter at her mother's words. I didn't throw anything away. I chose to be with the person I love. But at what cost? Her mother countered, her voice rising in frustration. You're running from your family, from everything we've built together. You're breaking my heart, Emma. The confrontation escalated, emotions running high. Jackson stood by Emma's side, but he could feel the tension in the air. He wanted to protect her, but he also wanted to respect her family. Mrs. Roberts, please understand that we're happy, he said, his voice steady. We're not trying to hurt anyone. Her mother's eyes narrowed. If you truly loved my daughter, you would have brought her home. This isn't love, it's selfishness. Emma felt torn between the two people she loved most. You don't understand, she cried, frustration bubbling over. You don't know what it's like to feel this way. I can't just go back to the life I had before. Maybe you should think about the consequences of your choices, her mother shot back, her voice cold. The tension in the room reached a boiling point, and Emma felt as if her heart was being ripped in two. I can't keep doing this, she shouted, her voice breaking. I can't keep running from my own family. Jackson stepped forward, desperation in his eyes. Emma, please. But before he could finish, Emma turned to her mother, tears streaming down her face. I need time to think. I don't want to hurt you, but I can't just go back to being who I was. I'm not that person anymore. Her mother's expression softened, and for a moment, Emma saw the love and concern in her eyes. I just want you to be safe, Emma. I want you to be happy. But you need to come back home. Emma felt a surge of conflicting emotions. She wanted to run into her mother's arms, to feel the safety and love she had always known. But she also felt the pull of her relationship with Jackson, the bond that had changed her life forever. Please, just give me some time, Emma said, her voice trembling. I need to figure this out. Her mother nodded slowly, the tension in the room easing slightly. I'll be waiting for you, Emma. Just remember that you're always welcome home. As her mother left, Emma felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She turned to Jackson, who watched her with concern. What do we do now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. But we'll figure it out together. Whatever you decide, I'm here for you. The following days were filled with turmoil as Emma grappled with her emotions. The confrontation with her mother had shaken her, forcing her to confront the reality of her situation. She found herself torn between the love she felt for Jackson and the longing for the safety and familiarity of her family. As she walked through the city streets, she felt a deep sense of loneliness. The excitement of their escape had faded, replaced by an overwhelming sense of doubt. She missed her friends, her home, and the life she had once known. But with that longing came the memory of the love she shared with Jackson, a love that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. One evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Emma turned to Jackson, her heart heavy. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," she admitted, her voice trembling. Jackson's expression shifted, concern flooding his features. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice low and steady. "I mean, this life we've built here. It's not what I thought it would be," Emma confessed, her heart racing as she struggled to articulate her feelings. "I love you, but I miss my family. I miss the comfort of home. I feel lost, Jackson." He took a deep breath, his gaze unwavering. "I understand. I miss my family too, but we chose this for a reason. We were trying to escape something that felt suffocating. But if it's too much, we can talk about it." Emma looked out at the horizon, the colors of the sunset swirling together in a beautiful yet melancholic tapestry. I feel like I'm in the middle of a storm," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I don't know which way to turn." Jackson reached for her hand, his thumb gently caressing her palm. "You don't have to decide right now. Just take your time. I'll be here, no matter what you choose." She appreciated his reassurance, but the weight of her emotions was suffocating. "What if I decide I want to go back?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Then we'll go back," he replied, his voice filled with sincerity. "But I need you to be certain. I don't want you to make a decision out of fear or doubt. I want you to choose what makes you truly happy." Emma nodded, feeling tears welling in her eyes. "I just wish it didn't have to be so complicated," she confessed, her voice breaking. "Why can't we just be together without all this drama?" "I wish that too," Jackson said softly, pulling her closer. "But sometimes love comes with challenges. It tests us in ways we never expect." As they sat in silence, Emma felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She knew she had to confront her feelings head-on, and soon. Days turned into a week, and the ache of longing for her family grew stronger. Emma found herself waking up in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling, haunted by memories of her childhood home, the laughter, the warmth, the love. She missed her mother's hugs, the smell of her favorite home-cooked meals, and the comfort of knowing she was surrounded by family. One evening, after a long shift at the bookstore, she returned home to find Jackson sitting on the couch, his face etched with worry. "Hey, how was work?" he asked, trying to gauge her mood. "It was okay," she replied, her voice flat. She felt drained, both physically and emotionally. "Emma, you've been quiet for days. Is everything all right?" he pressed gently. "I think I need to go back," she said, the words spilling out before she could stop them. The realization hit her like a wave, overwhelming yet freeing. "I miss my family too much to keep pretending everything is fine." Jackson's expression shifted, a mixture of sadness and understanding. "If that's what you really want, I'll support your decision," he said, his voice steady. "But I can't lie to you, it'll hurt." "I know," Emma whispered, tears filling her eyes. "But I can't keep living like this. I need to face my family and the consequences of my choices." "Do you want me to come with you?" he asked, his tone gentle but laced with uncertainty. Emma thought for a moment. "I think it might be better if I go alone. I need to have that conversation with my mom first, without any distractions." Jackson nodded slowly, his heart breaking at the thought of her leaving, even temporarily. "Okay. Just promise me you'll think about us. About what we have." "I will," she promised, her heart heavy with the weight of her decision. The next day, Emma packed a small bag with a few belongings, her heart racing as she prepared to return home. She felt a mix of excitement and dread, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her. What would her mother say? Would she be angry? Would she welcome her back with open arms? As she boarded the bus back to her hometown, Emma couldn't shake the feeling of apprehension. The journey felt both familiar and foreign, memories flooding back as she passed through the landscape she had once known so well. She felt as if she were stepping back into a different life, a life that both thrilled and terrified her. When she finally arrived, Emma stood outside her childhood home, her heart pounding in her chest. The familiar sight of the house tugged at her heartstrings, memories flooding back of days spent playing in the yard, family dinners, and laughter echoing through the halls. Taking a deep breath, she walked up to the door and knocked. Time seemed to stand still as she waited, her pulse racing. Moments later, the door swung open, and her mother stood there, a look of shock washing over her face. "Emma," her mother exclaimed, tears welling in her eyes. "You're home." Emma felt herself being enveloped in her mother's embrace, the warmth and love wrapping around her like a comforting blanket. For a moment, she felt that familiar sense of safety, the chaos of her recent life fading away. "I've missed you so much," her mother said, pulling back to look at her daughter. "I was so worried. Why didn't you call?" "I'm sorry, Mom," Emma said, her voice trembling. "I was trying to figure things out. I didn't know how to face you." Her mother's expression softened, and Emma could see the concern etched in her features. "I'm just glad you're here. Come inside. We need to talk." As they sat in the living room, the air was thick with unspoken words. Emma could feel the weight of her mother's expectations pressing down on her. "I just want to understand, Emma," her mother said gently. "What happened? Why did you run away?" Emma took a deep breath, the words tumbling out as she recounted her feelings, her love for Jackson, and the struggles they faced together. She spoke of the exhilaration and fear of their relationship, the joy it brought her, but also the confusion and doubt that had crept in over time. "I know it was a bold choice," Emma said, her voice shaking. "But I did it because I thought it was what I wanted. I thought I could build a life with him, but it's not as simple as I imagined." Her mother listened intently, her expression a mix of concern and understanding. "Emma, love is complicated. It can be beautiful, but it can also be painful. You're still so young, and I worry that you might be making a mistake." "I know," Emma admitted, tears brimming in her eyes. "But I love him. I really do. I don't want to lose you either." Her mother reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "You won't lose me, Emma. You'll always have a place in my heart and in this family. But I want you to think carefully about your choices. Love shouldn't come at the cost of your happiness or your family." Emma nodded, her heart aching at the thought of the pain her choices had caused. "I understand, Mom. I just needed to be honest with myself and with you. I don't want to hide anymore." Her mother's expression softened, and she pulled Emma into another embrace. "I'm proud of you for coming back and for being honest. I want to support you, but I also want you to know that you can always talk to me about anything. I'm here for you." As they sat together, Emma felt a weight lifting off her shoulders. The warmth of her mother's love enveloped her, a stark contrast to the uncertainty she had faced in the city. "I'm sorry for hurting you," Emma whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I just didn't know how to handle everything." "I forgive you," her mother replied softly. "Just promise me that you'll think about what you really want and what's best for you, not just for Jackson." Emma nodded, feeling a renewed sense of clarity. "I will, Mom. I promise." That night, Emma lay in her old bedroom, the familiar scents and colors wrapping around her like a nostalgic embrace. She stared at the ceiling, memories flooding her mind, family gatherings, laughter, and the comfort of being home. But she also thought of Jackson, of the love they shared, and the risks they had taken together. As the hours passed, Emma found it hard to sleep. Her heart was torn between two worlds, the love she felt for Jackson and the safety and familiarity of her family. She knew she had to make a decision, one that would define her future. The next morning, Emma made her way to the kitchen, where her mother was preparing breakfast. The smell of pancakes filled the air, a reminder of the warmth of family life. "Good morning, sweetheart," her mother said, smiling at her. "I hope you slept well." "I did," Emma replied, taking a seat at the table. "Can we talk about Jackson?" Her mother paused, her expression shifting to one of concern. "Of course. What do you want to say?" "I love him, Mom," Emma said, her voice steady. "But I've realized that I need to take a step back and really think about what that means. I don't want to rush into anything, but I also don't want to lose him." Her mother nodded, her eyes softening. "That's a wise approach. It's important to understand your feelings and the implications of your relationship. You need to make sure that your love is built on a strong foundation, not just passion." "I know that now," Emma said, her heart feeling lighter. "I want to talk to him and figure out what's next for us. I want to see if we can make it work, but I need to do it in a way that feels right." "Then go talk to him," her mother encouraged. "But remember to communicate openly. Honesty is key in any relationship." Emma felt a surge of determination. "I will, Mom. Thank you for being so understanding." After breakfast, she quickly got ready and headed out, her heart racing with anticipation. She knew that this conversation with Jackson would be crucial, not just for their relationship but for her own sense of self. When Emma arrived at Jackson's apartment, she found him sitting on the couch, a look of relief washing over his face as he saw her. "Emma. I was worried about you," he said, rising to greet her with open arms. She stepped into his embrace, feeling the warmth and safety she had missed. "I'm sorry I didn't call. I needed some time to think." He pulled back, concern etched on his features. "What did you decide?" Taking a deep breath, Emma sat down across from him, her heart pounding. "I spoke with my mom. She was worried about me, but she also made me realize that I need to figure out what I truly want." Jackson's expression softened, and he nodded. "I'm glad you have that support. It's important." "I love you, Jackson," she began, her voice steady. "But I've realized that I can't just throw everything away without thinking it through. I've missed my family, and I need to find a balance between my love for you and my relationships with them." He listened intently, his gaze unwavering. "I understand. I've been feeling the pressure too. I want you to be happy, Emma, even if that means taking a step back from us." "I don't want to lose you," she said, her voice trembling. "But I also don't want to rush into anything. I want to give us the chance to grow in a healthier way." Jackson nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "Then let's take a step back. We can give each other space to breathe, to figure things out. That doesn't mean it's over, it just means we're being careful." Emma felt a rush of relief at his understanding. "Thank you for being so mature about this. I really appreciate it." "Of course," he replied, a small smile breaking through. "I love you, Emma. I'm willing to wait for you, no matter how long it takes." As days turned into weeks, Emma found herself navigating the delicate balance between her relationship with Jackson and her family. They maintained open communication, discussing their feelings and fears without judgment. Emma spent time with her family, reconnecting with her mother and finding comfort in the familiarity of her old life. At the same time, she stayed in touch with Jackson, who was supportive of her journey to rediscover herself. They would exchange messages, sharing funny anecdotes about their day, and occasionally meet for coffee, the connection between them still vibrant but tempered with a newfound understanding. Emma began to explore her own interests, taking art classes and spending time with friends. She felt herself growing more confident and independent, realizing that while her love for Jackson was profound, she needed to cultivate her own identity outside of their relationship. One evening, as she worked on a painting in her room, her mother knocked on the door. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Of course," Emma replied, setting her brush down. Her mother entered, a warm smile on her face. "I just wanted to check on you." how are you feeling? Good, Emma said, her heart swelling with gratitude. I've been painting and spending time with friends. It feels nice to reconnect with everything. Her mother's expression brightened. I'm glad to hear that. It's important to find what makes you happy. It is, Emma agreed, her thoughts drifting to Jackson. I've also been talking to Jackson, and I think we're in a better place now. We're taking things slow, which feels right. That sounds healthy, her mother replied, her eyes shining with pride. It's crucial to have that balance. Relationships can be beautiful, but they can also become overwhelming if we're not careful. Emma nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. I've realized that I need to be my own person as well. I can't lose myself in someone else, no matter how much I love them. Her mother smiled, her approval evident. That's such a mature perspective, Emma. It shows that you're growing up and learning to navigate the complexities of life and love. Just remember, I'm always here for you, no matter what. Thank you, Mom, Emma said, her heart swelling. I really appreciate your support. I know I hurt you when I left, but I'm grateful you welcomed me back with open arms. Her mother placed a comforting hand on Emma's shoulder. You're my daughter, and I'll always love you. Just keep communicating with me, and we'll get through this together. As the weeks turned into months, Emma continued to embrace her newfound independence while nurturing her relationship with Jackson. They took their time, exploring each other's worlds with a sense of curiosity and respect. Their conversations grew deeper, filled with hopes and dreams for the future. One afternoon, Emma and Jackson met at their favorite cafe, the air buzzing with the chatter of patrons and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. They settled into a cozy corner booth, the atmosphere warm and inviting. Hey, Jackson said, a smile spreading across his face as he looked at her. You seem different today. Emma chuckled, feeling a rush of warmth at his compliment. I guess I just feel more at peace. I've been spending a lot of time reflecting on what I want, and I think I finally understand how to approach our relationship better. As the evening progressed, Emma felt a sense of warmth enveloping her. She was reminded of the importance of family, the love that grounded her, and the support that would always be there, no matter what choices she made. After dinner, as they cleared the table, Emma's mother pulled her aside. I'm really proud of you, Emma, she said softly. You've grown so much, and it's clear that you and Jackson care for each other deeply. Thanks, Mom, Emma replied, her heart swelling. It means a lot to me that you're trying to understand our relationship. I just want you to be happy, her mother said, a smile breaking through. If Jackson makes you happy, then I'll support you both. Emma's heart soared at her mother's words, realizing that she had finally come full circle. The love she had for Jackson and the love from her family could coexist, and that was a beautiful thing. As the months passed, Emma and Jackson continued to nurture their relationship while also embracing their individual paths. They supported each other's dreams, celebrated each other's successes, and faced challenges together with open hearts. One evening, as they strolled through a local art gallery, Emma felt a rush of inspiration. She turned to Jackson, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I want to have my own art show. I've been working on my pieces, and I think I'm ready to share them with the world. Jackson beamed at her enthusiasm. That's amazing, Emma. You have so much talent, and you deserve to showcase your work. I'll help you however I can. Emma smiled, feeling grateful for his unwavering support. I'd love that. I want you to be there with me, cheering me on. As they left the gallery, Emma felt a sense of purpose and direction. She was no longer just Emma, the girl caught in a whirlwind of emotions. She was Emma, an artist with dreams, surrounded by love and support. In the months that followed, Emma poured her heart into her art, and with Jackson by her side, she organized her first gallery show. The night of the event was magical. Friends, family, and community members filled the space, admiring her work and celebrating her talent. As Emma stood by her paintings, she felt a sense of pride wash over her. She had come so far, and she was grateful for the journey that had led her to this moment. After the show, as the crowd began to disperse, Jackson took Emma's hand and led her outside. The night air was cool and crisp, filled with the sounds of laughter and celebration. "You were incredible tonight," he said, his eyes sparkling with admiration. "I knew you had it in you, but seeing it come to life was something else entirely." Emma felt her cheeks flush at his compliment, her heart swelling with warmth. "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without your support. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." "Always," Jackson replied, pulling her closer. "You're a remarkable woman, Emma. You've grown so much, and I'm honored to be a part of your journey." They stood in the soft glow of streetlights, the world around them fading away as they lost themselves in each other's gaze. In that moment, Emma felt an overwhelming sense of love and gratitude. The weight of their past struggles seemed to evaporate, leaving only the promise of a bright future ahead. "I feel like we've both come so far," she said, her voice a whisper. "From the chaos to this, together. It feels right." Jackson nodded, his expression serious. "It does. I've learned that love isn't just about the highs, it's about growing together through the lows. We've faced a lot, but we've emerged stronger." As they walked hand in hand down the quiet street, Emma reflected on the whirlwind of emotions they had navigated. The struggles, the doubts, and the fear of losing one another had only deepened their connection. They had both learned the importance of communication, trust, and respect. "Do you ever think about the future?" Emma asked, breaking the silence. "What we want for ourselves?" "Every day," Jackson replied, squeezing her hand. "I want to support you in your art, help you achieve your dreams. And I want to continue building a life together, one where we can both thrive." Emma's heart raced at the thought. "I want that too. I want us to create a life filled with love, adventure, and growth. I want to explore the world with you, just as I'm exploring myself." Jackson smiled, a sense of hope lighting up his eyes. "Then let's make that happen. We'll take it one step at a time, but we'll do it together." In the months that followed, Emma and Jackson continued to flourish, both individually and as a couple. Emma's art gained recognition, leading to more opportunities and collaborations. Jackson pursued his career with determination, finding ways to balance his work with their shared life. They traveled together, exploring new cities and cultures, each adventure deepening their bond. They learned to navigate life's challenges as a team, celebrating their successes and supporting each other through setbacks. The love they had for one another blossomed, rooted in understanding and respect. One evening, as they returned from a trip to the coast, Emma turned to Jackson, her heart racing with excitement. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice filled with anticipation. "What if we take a leap and move in together?" Jackson's expression shifted from surprise to joy. "Are you serious? I'd love that. I can't think of anything better than sharing a space with you." Emma smiled, a surge of happiness washing over her. "I think it would be a great next step for us. We've built a strong foundation, and this feels like the perfect time to take that leap." "I agree," Jackson said, his eyes shining. "Let's find a place that feels like home for both of us." As they began the search for an apartment, Emma felt a sense of excitement and nervousness. This was a new chapter in their lives, one filled with possibilities and challenges. They spent weekends exploring neighborhoods, visiting potential homes, and discussing what they wanted in their shared space. Eventually, they found a cozy two-bedroom apartment in a vibrant area of the city. The moment they stepped inside, Emma knew it was the one. The sunlight poured in through the large windows, and the space felt warm and inviting. "This is it," Emma declared, her heart racing. "I can already picture us here." Jackson grinned, his enthusiasm infectious. "I can too. We can turn this place into our home." As they settled into their new life, they embraced the joys and challenges of cohabitation. They learned to navigate shared responsibilities, from cooking and cleaning to balancing their schedules. But through it all, they communicated openly, never losing sight of the love that brought them together. One evening, as they cozied up on the couch after a long day, Emma turned to Jackson, a soft smile on her lips. "You know, I never imagined I could be this happy." Jackson looked at her, his expression serious yet filled with warmth. "I feel the same way. We've come so far, and I can't imagine my life without you in it." Emma's heart fluttered at his words. "You've been my rock through everything. I want you to know how much you mean to me." He reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "And you mean the world to me, Emma. I love you more than I can express." As they sat together, wrapped in each other's arms, Emma felt a sense of peace settle over her. They had faced their fears, navigated the complexities of love, and emerged stronger together. The journey had been anything but easy, but it had shaped them into who they were, two souls intertwined, ready to face whatever life had in store. In that moment, Emma realized that love was not just about grand gestures or perfect moments, it was about growth, understanding, and the willingness to stand by one another through thick and thin. And as they leaned in for a kiss, Emma knew that this was just the beginning of their forever together. They had built a strong foundation, and together, they would create a life filled with love, adventure, and endless possibilities. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please like, share, and subscribe for more updates. Your support means a lot to us. See you in the next video.